Hello, everyone. It's Julie Boye here. I'm so excited to share another one of my self-love interviews. I have a very special guest today. I'd like you to welcome Lona Odgers. Good morning.
Good family day to you.
Yes, we're doing this on Family Day because Lona has a very full schedule. So she is a registered acupuncturist and a classical Chinese medicine practitioner. She lives here on Vancouver Island in the same city that I do. We met through our women's networking group. And we actually connected because she had seen some of these videos, and that actually was the way we started our conversation. And when I learned a little bit more about Lona, I said, I'd really love to have the chance to interview you for my podcast and my videos, because I just even looking at your Facebook, I was like, you've done so many interesting and creative things. You're always learning and growing. So I was wondering if you could just take a moment to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey so far.
I'd be really happy to do that, actually. I don't know where to start. Maybe starting with how I got into Chinese
Let's tell me a little bit about how you got into being a registered acupuncturist, because I think, is that the longest part of your career, or did you start with something else first?
I was a teacher, an ESL teacher, EFL teacher for 18 years, and lived in Japan with my husband for 12 of those, and worked a lot with international students. And in 2002, when we moved back to Canada from Japan, I went back into teaching here at BIU, and was there for about a year and a half. And I was kind of at the end of my career. I just didn't really realize how much at the end I was.
Oh.
So I was in contract negotiation. And the long and short of it was that I realized that I didn't want to wait. I was 40 at the time, and I considered myself a capable person, and I really wanted to do something meaningful. And so when my contract wasn't renewed, I took the opportunity to start exploring other avenues. And I kind of started with something that I was really interested in, which was energy medicine.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. And I love how you mentioned that, your contract ended, and instead of going, being upset or frustrated or kind of looking for the same thing, you took it as an opportunity, as a space, as a moment to breathe and ask yourself, well, what do I want to do? What does Lona want to do? So that's already like in the path of self-love, asking ourselves, what do I want to do, is a really important question. So you started into energy medicine. And
well, I started looking into that, but you know what? To study that, I'd have to move to New York and away from the island and my husband. And at the time, I was like, no, that's just not an option. So I thought, well, what's here? And I stumbled on Chinese medicine, and the more I read about it, it's like, well, this really seems like it's the root of, or it's connected to, the Western energy medicine. So I'm going to study that, because I can commute from Nanaimo to Victoria, doing a share ride, and I can live with my sister and her husband during the week and come home on the weekends. So that's what I did for 4 years.
For 4 years?
Yep. Actually, it would have been 5, but my husband and I moved to Edmonton. So.
Oh my gosh! Talk about a commitment to. And did you have a personal experience with this before? Like, had you been to see a practitioner, or you just found the whole thing interesting?
When I lived in Japan, I actually had a health crisis, and got in touch with a practitioner there who helped a lot with my recovery. And I was just fascinated by it. And I would never have thought of myself going into medicine. My mom was in medicine, and I promised myself I wouldn't go into that area. But I don't know, I came into my first class. So I left teaching in April. I was in school in September.
Wow.
And I remember the first week of my class, foundations class, I was sitting there and the professor was talking about the worldview, and I wrote at the top of my book because I was just so moved, I am home.
Wow.
Yeah.
I literally got full body chills when you said that. It just hit my whole body. So you mentioned quickly that you went to Edmonton somehow in the middle of all this. So that was maybe short-lived, or?
Well, I finished school in 2008.
Mhm.
And then my husband and I moved to Edmonton. He took up a position there, and I was at the beginning of starting my practice. So
Right.
I licensed in Alberta.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then was the acupuncture work also part of the studying that you did for the 4 years as well? Was that part of the Chinese medicine study?
So it's really interesting, you know, because a lot of people think of acupuncture as a field, and it's not.
Okay.
Acupuncture is actually a tool. It's one of the treatment methods that we use, and the paradigm that we're practicing from is through Chinese medicine. So it's
Okay.
4 years of Chinese medicine study, and then acupuncture is one of the, yeah.
Well, and I'm glad you made that clear, because there are, like, physiotherapists who learn how to do acupuncture, or chiropractors who learn how to do acupuncture as a modality. So, and I believe that when you study through, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, it's different than using it just as a tool for like pain relief or whatever. You're studying it in a very different way, if I understand correctly. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. We're working systemically.
Yeah.
And, the choice of points and is based in a diagnosis of carefully considered, consider all the symptoms. We look at the tongue, we feel the pulses, we palpate the body, and we take all that information along with what the person has said to us, and then we come up with a diagnosis, and then based on that, there are certain combinations that we use. Very different from a complementary practitioner.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's important to understand too. It's a really different kind of holistic approach to, I saw that you do a different number of different modalities as well. So I'm curious, because what exactly, where would we fit self-love into the kind of work that you do with your clients? Like, how does that fit into working with Lona?
Well, I love the question. So I think one of the things that I love about Chinese medicine, and in particular one of the side effects of acupuncture, is that over time, people become very aware of themselves. Chinese medicine is all about integration of the 4 levels of your being: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual selves. And so when any of those levels are out of alignment, then we have dis-ease.
Yeah.
And the beauty, and I see this time and time again, and I've experienced this myself personally through treatment, is that when you're having a treatment, those 4 things come together in a way that you return to yourself. And then from that place, you can go out and do all the things that you need to do. So I think ultimately it's, self-love is about self-connection. Yeah.
It's interesting that you put it that way, because I hadn't really thought about self-love in that way, but there is this often disconnect between the self and the physical body as well. That's a huge one for a lot of people, is the disconnect between, what we're eating and how our body feels, or whether we're moving and how our body feels, or how we're thinking or expressing or not expressing our feelings, the way that shows up in our body. So it sounds like with the work you do, you're bringing all these pieces together into the one, because we're not separate, right?
That's right.
We're not separate from our emotions.
as much as we want to sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Mhm.
So I'm really intrigued though, even more so because I noticed that you are, like many of us, continuing to grow and learn and invest in yourself. And I noticed that you've been studying with the relationship school, which is something I'd never heard of before. I'm very, very curious to learn about what that is. Can you tell us more?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know where to start. So the relationship school is was created by and is run by Jason Gaddis.
Okay.
I discovered him back in 2016. My husband and I separated, and I was really, really lost and just trying to figure out how to navigate our relationship and to try and figure out how to reconcile and all of this kind of stuff. So I went searching for tools and information and just to get as much as I could about that. And I came across Stan Tatkin, who talks about attachment theory.
Okay.
And it's a theory about how, through our earliest experiences with our caregivers, we have these particular ways that we connect.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So I was watching Stan Tatkin, and he was interviewing, or he was having a conversation with Jason Gaddis, and this guy, he was just so over the top, but I was compelled. Like he was compelling. I just loved what he was saying. He is a straight shooter. He doesn't mince words. Like he says what he thinks. And the other thing I really loved about him was that he comes from a Buddhist background,
Okay.
which at that time was a really important part of my life. And so I just felt that he was speaking a language that I could understand, and through the lens of Buddhism and loving kindness and compassion and those kinds of things. Yeah, so I was intrigued.
Wow. I think one thing I find really interesting is, you were watching an interview, much like you and I are doing an interview, and this kind of intimate interview between two people that we now share through social media, through YouTube, through, Facebook, however we're sharing it, it allows people the opportunity to feel a connection with someone that they might not have otherwise. It's a very intimate medium when two people are having a conversation. And even though we might never have heard of them before, we might never have seen someone before, we can find that connection just by watching someone sharing themselves on a screen. And I think that's a really important thing about what you shared. It wasn't something you didn't Google this person and look him up. You came across this interview because of other work you've been looking at, and then it clicked and led you in a direction that has had a really, I think, a great impact on your life. So you said you've been studying for a couple of years with the relationship school?
Yeah, so I took some time to just sort of, watch his podcasts on and off. And so the school is all about, what we're learning about is intimate relationship, intimate long-term relationship. And Jason's premise is that we actually don't learn how to do relationship. It's something that can be taught, and that if you want to have a long-term, a safe, secure, supported, long-term relationship, then we actually have to learn tools, because at some point, when we come into a challenging state, which is where a lot of relationships really start to fail, we don't have the tools. And so that's what I went in for, is I went in to learn the tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would you say is the very most important relationship we have in our lives?
Definitely your relationship with yourself, because it starts with you.
Yeah.
And then you can be in relationship with others. And I have to say, though, that I can't really learn about myself in isolation. So being in relationship is the vehicle through which I get to learn more about me.
That's a very poignant piece of wisdom that you've shared, is that, you know, in order to have a better relationship with ourselves, we have to be in relation with others to develop that, to understand how we're going to react in situations, to understand who we are, how we show up, and then what we're going to do to change or to grow with the love and respect and kindness that we have for ourselves first. So this is so aligned with this beautiful work that I've been doing around self-love. I'm super interested now as well. So we'll make sure that we share links to the website, to all these interesting things that you've mentioned as well, so that people can take a look at in their own time to see if it makes sense for them to pursue this. So how do you see this work you're doing, this work with Relationship School, fitting in with your practice? Do the two of them, you know, are the two of them going to marry? One's personal work, one's professional work. Is there a way for them to work together?
Well, you know, it's really interesting. As I've been working through the programs, I've realized that some of what I'm learning about communication, about repairing rupture, about speaking needs and setting boundaries, those kinds of things. I've already been doing some of that in my practice, my clinical practice, in how I interact with people, and also how I work with people to get more in tune with themselves in those initial moments of the treatment, where we actually sit down and we talk about, hey, what's up with you today? Like, how are you showing up today? And that's been a big surprise. So now I'm starting to understand in a more concrete way what I've been doing and why it's been working.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So that it's kind of holding up the mirror and saying, okay, here's what I've been doing, and now I understand why it's working. Oh, so I'm very, very intrigued to learn more about this, because we are in a relationship every day with the people around us. And like you said, the challenges are a part of life. That's going to happen. We can't escape that. And it's what we do, whether we resolve or whether we move forward. And both, you know, sometimes moving forward means not in the same direction.
That's right.
But sometimes it also means that we have work to do if we want to resolve and keep a relationship and grow past it. And it's funny because I've just been writing a blog post about how, you know, when we do face these serious relationship challenges or other challenges in our lives, it's where the growth happens.
Absolutely.
As uncomfortable as it is, right? You said, you know, your marriage ended and you started looking for things and ways to move forward, but also like you had to go through something that was not good, right? Like something that was very difficult. And I find it really interesting that you ended up in this beautiful place, like not really that long after. So I'm so excited. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Something really new and different. Thank you, Lona. That is fantastic. So I want to ask you my favorite question to ask my guests, which is, with everything that you've shared today, because you've shared a lot of really interesting and different things that I hadn't even thought of before. If you could inspire people to make one change, so whether it's to start a new habit or stop doing something, or something that can help us, you know, in our self-love journey, what would that be for you?
I think the one thing that I would really encourage people to do is once or twice a day, really get in touch with your own experience. Like, where are you? Where am I at this moment? Where am I in my presence? What am I feeling? What's happening in my body? What are my thoughts? And also, what do I have available to me in this moment that helps to ground me? So staying with your experience, whatever that is. Yeah.
That's a beautiful way to remind us to be present. And I hope if you're watching or listening that you will pause, maybe go back, write some of these great questions down, because even myself, I was like, how am I feeling right in this moment? You know, where am I? Am I here? Am I present? Do I hear noises in the background? Do I see what's coming through my window? where is my mind? Where is my focus? So even in this moment, I kind of caught myself going, oh yeah, where am I? So, oh, exciting. So much goodness. I'm so excited for, to share this with so many people, but I'm also excited because, you and I have just started to get to know each other. And I feel like it's so much fun to have these opportunities to connect with people to share their message that they might not have otherwise. Doing an interview isn't for everybody. There isn't always that opportunity, but this has been so great. You've introduced me to a number of concepts that I wasn't even aware of that existed. And I really, really am so grateful for that. I know that people are going to want to connect with you or follow you or whatever they will after listening. So where is the best place to find you?
Well, this is really new for me. I'm not used to being so public. So Facebook is a good place. I am on there.
What's your Facebook? What's your Facebook? Do you have a Facebook business page?
Seeds of Health Acupuncture.
Okay. And that's your website as well, right?
That's also my website. Okay. But I also have my personal, just Lona Odgers.
Yeah.
LONEODGERS. You can connect with me there.
I feel like that's a whole story in itself of having to pronounce your name to everybody for your entire life, right? So
it is, and it's a Danish name. It's Lona, but it's really hard for a lot of people to say that for some reason. I think part of it is just there's a lot of nervousness around getting it wrong. So on my business cards, I actually put the phonetic just to give people a heads up, so it's not so great. So.
Well, and I think that's great too. And I think what I know we're kind of off topic, but I do think part of self-love is correcting people when they say your name incorrectly. Because we do have an attachment to our name. Like we have that attachment to our name. And when we say it incorrectly, it's misaligned, right? So having the courage to correct people when they say your name incorrectly is actually a real fundamental self-love thing. My name looks like Boyer, but it's Boyer. And I say that because it's French and I'm proud to be French. So I will correct people. And it does take that little moment of like, should I correct them or not? But it is your name and it is, there's a way to say it. And I actually really like that about the fact that you put it phonetically too on your business cards to help people to remember how to say your beautiful name. So Lona, I have just loved this time together. Thank you so, so much. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thank you so much for today. And I've enjoyed it so much. And I look forward to connecting soon.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.